In 1908, the sky exploded. A light brighter than the sun tore across the Siberian wilderness. Then, silence. Moments later, the air itself screamed. Forests folded. The ground convulsed. And in a heartbeat, 800 square miles of wilderness vanished. They said it was the end of the world. But what truly happened, no one could explain. Now listen to the story of the Tunguska Explosion, the blast that shook Siberia. Before we begin, subscribe. It keeps stories like this alive. June 30th, 1908. The sun is still low over the endless wilderness of central Siberia. A place so remote, it is untouched by rail, unmarked by road, and unknown to most of the world. The Tunguska River flows silently through the taiga, a vast expanse of pine, birch, and bog. In scattered villages and reindeer camps, life begins as it always has, quietly. Hunters prepare for the day. A farmer sharpens his axe. Children wake to the soft wind whispering through the trees. Then, without warning, the wind stops. The birds fall silent, and the sky catches fire. A glowing ball appears from the north, blazing blue-white, brighter than the morning sun. It cuts through the heavens, trailing a long, shimmering tail that splits the clouds apart. People drop to their knees, shielding their eyes. One man later said, "The sky was split in two. Fire covered the forest. The heat was unbearable. Then, the world ends. A blinding flash, a sound like the heavens tearing apart, and a shock wave, rolling faster than thought, racing outward in every direction. It flattens 80 million trees across 800 square miles of forest. The ground shakes, the sky roars, and everything within miles is thrown to the earth. Herds of reindeer are hurled through the air. Cabins crumble. People hundreds of kilometers away are knocked from their chairs as windows explode in their homes. In the village of Vanavara, 40 miles from the blast, a man is thrown across his yard. When he wakes, he sees the forest burning. Flames rise hundreds of feet high. The sky glows crimson. The air is thick with ash. For minutes, maybe hours, no one knows, the light dances. Then darkness returns. Silence. And in that silence, Siberia changes forever. Across the world, the effects ripple outward. In Russia and Europe, people stare in awe as the night sky begins to glow, a strange silver-blue light illuminating the darkness. In London, the newspapers report that one can read outside at midnight. In Paris, the clouds shimmer like ghostly auroras. No one understands it. No one connects it. Yet, to the explosion deep in Siberia, days turn to weeks, and word of the event travels slowly, carried by frightened witnesses and scattered telegrams. The region is so isolated that it will take nearly 2 decades before scientists reach the site. When reports finally reach St. Petersburg, scholars and geologists are baffled. A meteor strike? A volcanic eruption? Some even whisper of a new kind of weapon, though no one can say whose. But the truth is, no one has seen anything like it before. The first attempt to reach the Tunguska site is made by Russian authorities in 1908, but the wilderness is too vast, too hostile. Rivers freeze early. Swamps swallow horses and men. So the world moves on. The event becomes rumor, a legend whispered across the north. It isn't until 1927 that a man named Leonid Kulik, a Soviet mineralogist, leads an expedition to the Tunguska forest. He believes he will find the site of a massive meteorite impact, a crater carved deep into the earth. He imagines twisted metal, fragments of stone, molten rock scattered across the taiga. What he finds is stranger. When his team finally reaches the blast zone, the forest changes shape. Trees lie flat in perfect circles, radiating outward from a single invisible center. Their roots point away from an epicenter, like the spokes of a wheel. The site is biblical. For miles, the forest is nothing but splintered trunks, charred and gray. The smell of burned sap still lingers after 20 years. And in the very center, nothing. No crater. No hole. Just upright trees stripped bare, their branches burned away, standing like black poles against a silent sky. Kulik stands in the middle of it all and writes in his journal. The ground is scorched. The trees lie like matchsticks. And yet, no stone, no fragment, no sign of the culprit. He orders his men to dig. They search for weeks. They find magnetized soil, melted rock, and strange glass beads, as if the sand itself had been fused by unimaginable heat. But there is no meteorite, nothing that explains the power of the blast, a force strong enough to flatten everything within 30 kilometers. Kulik calls it the strangest devastation on Earth. And he's right. The more they study the site, the stranger it becomes. The trees that were standing at the epicenter, not blown outward, but stripped clean, suggest an explosion above the ground, not below it. Something, maybe a meteor, maybe something else, must have detonated in the air, releasing all its energy before impact. But how? How could an object explode with the power of a nuclear bomb and leave behind nothing? There's no debris, no rock, no metal, no trace of fuel or chemicals. The only evidence is silence and the memory of fire. For the locals, the explanation is simpler. They say the god Agdi, spirit of thunder and fire, was angered. He hurled a flaming curse upon the earth to punish those who defied him. To others, it was a sign, a warning from heaven. To scientists, it is a problem without a solution. And as decades pass, the legend grows. Some say a comet disintegrated before touching the ground. Others whisper of antimatter or secret weapons lost to time. And a few speak of visitors from the stars. But the truth hides beneath the trees. And in 1908, those trees still remember the sound of the sky breaking apart. More than a century later, the scars remain. 80 million trees still lie in that same radial pattern, their trunks pointing away from an invisible point. A permanent reminder of the day the earth shook under an unseen hand. And even now, the air above Tunguska carries a kind of stillness, as if the land itself is listening, waiting for the sky to fall again. When the Soviet scientist Leonid Kulik first stood in that desolation in 1927, he believed he was standing on the edge of a crater, the wound of a meteor strike unlike any in recorded history. But the ground was whole. No depression, no metal, just trees, millions of them, lying as if they had been brushed away by the hand of a god. He scoured the forest for weeks. He measured radiation, gathered samples, charted the blast radius. Every answer led to another question. Kulik's notes spoke of magnetic anomalies and glassy soil, but nothing that resembled the kind of impact a meteor should leave behind. If it wasn't a meteor, what was it? In the years that followed, expedition after expedition tried to find the missing piece, the proof that would make sense of it all. They dug deeper. They flew aircraft over the taiga. They searched frozen rivers and deep swamps. But the truth remained buried, not in the earth, but in the sky. Scientists began to suspect something remarkable, that whatever fell from the heavens that day never actually touched the ground. Instead, a cosmic object, likely a meteoroid or comet fragment, may have exploded in midair, releasing its energy in a single, catastrophic blast. An explosion equal to 15 megatons of TNT, 1,000 times more powerful than the bomb that would one day level Hiroshima. The heat alone would have been enough to ignite the treetops and sear the air into fire. But because it detonated above the ground, it left no crater, only devastation. A shock wave tore downward, flattening forests for miles. Animals vaporized in an instant. The blast wave circled the globe. Instruments in London and Jakarta recorded it without knowing what it was. It was the largest explosion in recorded history, and yet it left behind nothing. For decades, this became the accepted explanation, a meteoric airburst. But even that theory couldn't explain everything. The Tunguska site didn't behave like a normal meteor strike. There were no metal fragments, No trace elements that matched any known asteroid. And the trees at the very center, still standing, stripped bare, suggested something even stranger. Some scientists proposed it had been a comet, made mostly of ice, which vaporized completely before touching the ground. Others whispered of something darker, a natural hydrogen explosion, or even geophysical energy released from beneath the Earth itself. The theories multiplied, but none could explain it all. Then came the Cold War, and with it, new fears and new theories. Some Soviet thinkers proposed the explosion was caused by a secret weapons test, perhaps by the Tsar's army, or even early chemical experiments gone wrong. But there was no record, and no human technology in 1908 could unleash that kind of force. Others began to drift into the realm of the forbidden. They spoke of antimatter collisions, matter and antimatter annihilating upon contact with Earth's atmosphere. Some believed it was a black hole, grazing the planet before vanishing back into space. And then, inevitably, came whispers of something not from this world. An alien craft, they said, a ship entering the atmosphere too fast, breaking apart before impact. Even Soviet scientists privately recorded the idea, not because they believed it, but because the evidence seemed to reject every earthly explanation. Kulik himself wrote, "It is as though the heavens struck the earth and withdrew its weapon." In the 1960s, satellites revealed new data. The destruction pattern matched what we now call an airburst, a blast in the lower atmosphere caused by an incoming object disintegrating before impact. The force would have compressed air to the point of ignition, sending a wave of superheated plasma toward the ground. It explained much, but not all. Still no fragments. Still no crater. And still, the mystery lingered. Even into the 21st century, new theories surfaced. Some claimed it was a carbonaceous asteroid, soft as charcoal, burning away completely. Others pointed to a comet nucleus, explaining the lack of residue. A few, fringe scientists, but persistent, said it might have been a miniature black hole or even dark matter, colliding with the planet in ways we still don't understand. But what haunts scientists most is the scale. 80 million trees, flattened, animals and birds gone in an instant. A shock wave circling the Earth, twice. Had it fallen just a few hours later, the object might have struck St. Petersburg, killing millions. It was chance, or fate, that it landed where it did, the emptiest place on the map. One researcher later said, if Tunguska had struck a city, history itself would have changed. Even now, over a century later, the Tunguska site remains one of the most studied and least understood events in modern history. Scientists return year after year, drilling into the permafrost, scanning for metals, searching for traces of space dust. But the mystery endures. The soil is clean, the crater non-existent. The only clues are in the trees, lying still after more than 100 years, frozen in the exact direction they fell. And beneath them, silence. In time, the Tunguska explosion gave birth to an entire field of science, the study of impact events. It forced humanity to confront a terrifying truth, that at any moment, a rock from the sky could erase everything we know. Because Tunguska was not unique. It was only the first we had recorded. Since then, astronomers have cataloged thousands of near-Earth objects. Some small, some large enough to end civilizations. And as we look to the stars, we understand now, the Tunguska blast wasn't a mystery. It was a warning. Today, satellites watch the skies. Telescopes map every faint glimmer that might one day become a falling fireball. But no system is perfect, and the heavens are vast. What happened once can happen again, and next time, it might not fall in the forest. More than a century later, the Tunguska region still bears the mark of that morning. No town was ever built there. The trees never grew back the same. And sometimes, when the wind moves through the valley, the branches creak like voices as if the forest itself remembers the sound of that impossible dawn. Whatever fell from the sky left no crater, no stone, no trace. Only questions, only silence, only a whisper that echoes through time. The Earth has been struck before. It will be struck again. In the heart of Siberia, the forest still whispers. And sometimes, when the wind is right, the ground remembers. I know you enjoyed this story. Please support this channel by liking and hitting the subscribe button. Thank you.